with a heart that can't be broken is like trying to see the light with eyes that can't be opened. Yeah, we both carry baggage we picked up on our way. So if you love me, do it gently, and I will do the same. We may shine, we may shatter, we may be picking up the pieces here on after.
Mark, you're 14 years old, you have your Eagle Scout, and we've been hunting together many times, but you've never been alone. Back in 1996, I came into this very area to hunt elk. I cut some fresh tracks and started to follow them early in the morning.
How many tracks did you find?
There were probably 20 to 24 elk in that herd, and as I followed them through the day, I caught glimpses of them, but I never saw any antlers. I kept following and kept following, hoping to get an elk. It never happened. Towards evening, the sun started setting low. I was sweaty and cold and worn out, and I was totally lost. Do you remember what they taught you in scouting once you realized you're lost?
They taught me the STOP program.
Yeah, stop, think, observe, and plan. I realized I needed to get a fire lit, a shelter built, and spend the night, so the next morning I could find my way out. So I headed up this very trail, and we're going to go up there today and try and find the exact location where I got lost. We're going to end up spending the night, and hopefully you can find your way in and back out, because if we end up in a survival situation, you're the one that's going to go for help.
All right, this should be fun. I'm excited.
Good. Let's go. We're going to go in, I think it's about 5 miles.
Geez, that far?
Well, I promise you I walked further than 5 miles that day, probably more like 12 to 15.
Jeez.
It's kind of a nice area.
Yeah.
You see there's a lot of pine trees, a lot of places where elk would be. There's enough material around here to build a shelter. Hopefully we can build a nice shelter tonight. Do you remember when we were working on your wilderness survival merit badge and we had to build a shelter and stay out?
Yes. Really comfortable pine bough bed.
Yeah, and the wolves came in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they came in and it was kind of, made me kind of nervous for a little while. I hope nothing bothers us tonight. Mark, we've walked about 2 miles now, and I'm getting kind of hot.
I heard it's bad to sweat.
Well, it is. In a survival situation, you should avoid that. You should really only work at about 60% of your body's capacity. It's natural for the body to perspire. That's its method of cooling you down. So right now, although your face and your hands are cool, the rest of your body is hot, so you'll start to perspire. So let's make sure and take our rest breaks. Don't perspire, let me know if you're getting wet. There's some zippers under your coat that you can open to ventilate, and we'll just enjoy our time.
All right.
Are you tired yet, Mark?
Oh, yeah.
I think we've hiked about 4 miles. We're pretty close to where I stayed the night, so we should start looking for a good place to build a shelter. We want a good tree canopy to hold the heat in, and lots of pine boughs. There's a lot of pine boughs here. So this looks like a good place in this area. The reason I chose this area is I could look down and see the canyon below and kind of look for somebody and signal if there was anybody in the area. That was a tough side hill. Are you hot now?
Yeah.
You notice the clouds are moving in, a storm's coming in, and when it does that, the temperature will always rise just a little bit. And when it clears up, it gets really cold. Hey, while we're here, there's a couple of interesting things. You always need to watch your backtrack to know where you've been, so that if you come out, you can remember it and find your way. If you look back up to the left, you can see Highlight Peak. A little more to the right, you can see Blackmore Peak. You've been on top of Blackmore Peak. It's the highest mountain around here. We're headed away from Blackmore Peak right now, so we're going east. If you see that, and you can pretty much see it from anywhere, head towards it. That's west, and that's where the truck is. So learn to watch your backtrack. Those are the ways you navigate in the outdoors.
All right, thanks, Dad.
Mark, this is about the very place that I stayed the night. It's a good place because we've got a nice little heat sink that we can build, lots of pine boughs, lots of things we can use. There's lots of firewood in the area, and it's a hill where we could be found. Rescuers, if they're in a plane or a helicopter, could see us here. We can look down and see the valley and see if anybody's coming, and we could signal them. So we need to build a shelter, and we need to build a fire and prepare a bed. So let's get busy.
Okay.
All right, let's pack the snow down first in this area. Well, Mark, one of us should start gathering pine boughs. We need a lot of them. That's the biggest job. We've got to have enough to keep us off of the snow and dry and insulated. If we have some left over, we might put them on top of us. It's a beautiful sunset. Looks like we better get busy though with the fire, huh?
Yeah.
That golden glow tells you that you better have a fire going by now. There's actually quite a bit under here that's going to burn.
It's also good if it has kind of that mossy stuff on it. That stuff burns good.
And any of this pine pitch that's on the trunk is excellent to start a fire with. You can get... It's always best to have gloves if you can while you're doing this to avoid injuries. I have 3 saws here that all claim to be the very best saws in a survival situation. This is the least expensive. I'm going to try that one out first. Boy, that certainly seems to be making good headway. I'm all the way through that, and I'm going to stop just short of this tree falling on me right now. Then there's a little cable type saw that many of you are familiar with. This is a higher quality one. And you can see already that I am making some headway, but this is going to be much better for smaller limbs. And then last, I have one made by Ultimate Survival, and we'll pull that out and try that. It's more like a chainsaw blade. Okay, I'm mostly through. It's going to go that way. So you can see the first saw and the third saw cut the fastest and the best. I'd like to just kind of finish this off, and you can see it fell the tree. Looks like it's going to go. I'm just going to help it. And there's our tree. Whenever we build a fire, we get all the preparation done first before we even light a match. Okay, we've got these bigger limbs, which we can still break these without the use of a saw. Usually I just like to give them a sharp wrap, and they'll break in segments like I just did. What we like to do is never have to try more than once. So we're going to get a fire going first try here. I like to use one main beam that's not going to burn through and not let my fire structure fall. And I poke that into the ground. So that's going to stay there until it burns. And then I like to take these smaller twigs and put the small ends down so that the flames kind of catch and go up. And I like to just lean those against the permanent structure as we go further and further up this main branch. The little limbs that we have get bigger and bigger. And that fire should start from the smallest limbs and progress up to the bigger ones, and we should have a fire going. Okay, Mark, we've got several ways we could start a fire. We always like to take more than one. 4 or 5 is optimum. So what we're going to do is just take our wax cup that we made at home, and we're going to pretend like we don't have a lighter, and we don't have matches, any of this emergency stuff that we really need. We're in a dire situation, our matches got wet. All we have is our paper cup that we made and a cotton ball. So we're going to set that cotton ball right here and just see if we can get that going with a striker. And you can see it worked. So we'll just take that cotton ball and that wax cup and put them right in here. We got a fire going without a match or a lighter. All we had was a striker. The Strike Force striker is just like the Boy Scout metal match. It gives off a pretty good spark, enough to light that cotton ball on fire. And that's all it took. The cotton ball provides enough heat to light that wood. Well, now that we have the fire going, and that's not a worry, we need to build a shelter and prepare a bed.
Okay, so I'm putting the big pine boughs on the bottom and then moving this up to get the smaller ones because it's more comfortable to sleep on smaller ones, and I'm cupping them down because it creates a more comfortable bed.
Okay, Mark, we've got this heat reflective that reflects 90% of our body heat. And from the amount of body heat you've been producing today, that should really be helpful tonight. So I'm just going to tie here just 2 half hitches, and we'll tie around the other side over there. We've created a pretty small shelter, small enough that our own body heat can heat it. It should allow the moisture to rise and get away from our body. I'm going to take these boots off and get my wool socks up here in the tree and let them dry off and pull out another pair of wool socks.
Do you ever wash your socks at home?
Do I ever? Yes, I do. But not very often. Wool is very interesting. I have on a wool top and wool pants and wool socks. And the reason I don't wash them very often is wool is self-cleaning. The creatine in the fibers of the wool prevent bacteria growth. They actually destroy bacteria. And wool is so aerated that the air gets in there and helps the evaporation and actually cleans the wool. The cells of wool, the fibers of wool, are made up of 2 different types of cells. And they absorb water at different rates. So as the wool gets wet, there's movement there, which actually breaks loose any of the dirt particles and is self-cleaning. But another thing that it does in that movement and in that friction, it actually generates heat. A single gram of wool generates 27 calories of heat when it goes from dry to wet. So these wool pants that I have on, they're a little wet in the knees right now from all the work I've done, but they'll provide plenty of warmth through the night. And the exterior of wool is really water repellent. What do you think? Are you ready to eat?
I am ready to eat.
Okay, I want to show you what we're going to eat tonight. We brought in 1 MRE, and here it is. We have Mexican style rice, lots of calories and starch there. And then we have, this is the chicken breast. So grilled chicken breast patty. Oh, looks like we got lucky. This is a good one. There's a pound cake. We have crackers. And we have hot chocolate. And we have, this is neat, this is an MRE heater. So we can put a little water in there and heat that packet up right away. It'll be steamy hot in just a second. I'll show you how that works. That's kind of neat. You just slide the chicken breast packet in there, fill it up to there with water, and kind of leave it at an angle. And within 5 minutes, that'll be a hot meal. So this is a neat feature. Now this should be plenty of calories for the night. The military puts a lot of calories in there for the servicemen and women. Well, we're getting ready to go to bed, and I put on a set of Filson merino wool thermals that I'm going to wear through the night. Underneath I have a set of polypropylene or Thermax, and then I have this wool. And with these two layers, I should wick the moisture away from me and trap all the dead airspace right next to my skin. I have another wool top here that I'm going to wear over the top of that. This one has a zip mock, which allows me to trap all the heat in and around my neck. I can zip that up so that it becomes just like a turtleneck. So, you know, I've got these socks that I just took off, and I'm going to hang those up in the tree for the night. I've got these smart wool socks I'm putting on. I've got my sleeping bag extension on my head. That's just a nice wool stocking cap. And I have a silk scarf. And I'm going to wear that. What I'll probably do is put it up over my head like this, so that I can breathe through it and keep all the air around my head and neck. I do have this wool sweater that I can put on if I get cold. But right now I feel like I'm comfortable and really don't need it. You mentioned you were going to try and sleep in all your clothes.
Yeah.
If it was a colder night, you know, tonight the temperature is around 10 degrees. If it was well below zero, I would probably do the same. Sleep in my clothes. But the clothes you have on through the day have a little bit of moisture in them. They're a little bit damp and maybe uncomfortable, and I think I'll leave mine off. So let's get you ready for bed.
All right.
Get your boots off, and we'll get the bivy bags laid out and just get in our shelter and see how we sleep. Before daylight, I was able to crawl out of my bag and look for my sense of directions. I was so happy we made it through the night. We survived. I slept probably about half the night on and off. First thing I saw was that crescent moon, and I was very happy. Now if you take that crescent moon and you line up from the top down, straight line through the bottom of the crescent, and draw that all the way down to the horizon, that direction is pretty nearly always south. So I've got my landmarks. I know that south is in that direction. If I move off to the right, I can see Blackmore Peak. Last night when we left the truck, Mark and I talked about Blackmore Peak, that was west and we were headed away from it east. Now, we know that we can head towards Blackmore Peak. We'll eventually intercept a trail or a road, and we can find the truck. We're really excited now that we have our sense of direction. I'm going to go back to the camp, wake Mark up, and get a little fire going and maybe warm up some hot chocolate. I believe we have a little bit of oatmeal, and we'll be in good shape for the day. Mark, can you see Blackmore Peak this morning?
Yes, very clear.
And that's what direction? West, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we should be able to hike out and find the truck if we can just get you out of the bivy bag.
Sure is good tea, Dad. Thanks for making it.
Yes,
Is it true that you're not supposed to eat food when you don't have enough water?
that is true. It takes water to process your food. And if you don't have enough water, which is your top priority, you should refrain from eating. There's lots of ways you can come up with water. You should have a little bit to put in your cup, and then you can put it near the fire and continue to melt snow through the night. You can actually take a sock if you're in a survival situation and fill it up with snow and hang it over the fire and then wring that out into your mouth. How does that sound to you?
Doesn't sound very good.
Well, you got to have the moisture. You might have to do it.
How much water should you get?
Well, through your skin, you can evaporate a liter of water per day. And in these conditions, dry and cold, it was down to around 0 degrees last night. You can give off a teaspoon of moisture per each breath. So you're going to need about 2 quarts of water a day, especially if you're active and hiking.
Can you eat straight snow? Is there another source that you can get?
Well, you should avoid eating straight snow. It takes a lot of calories, a lot of heat for your body to be able to warm that up. Also in that process, you need moisture, so it's kind of a vicious cycle. You're using your body's reserves of moisture to melt that snow. I'd say if you don't have anything else, you can eat a little bit of snow now and again. It's better to find icicles or really wet snow. But to eat direct cold snow, that's going to dehydrate you and not help you out with hypothermia. Try to find some other ways to hydrate, and when you've got a fire going, take in as much moisture as you can. If you're going to be active and hiking, you need the moisture. And to stay out of hypothermia, you really need it warmed. Warm fluid is very effective at keeping someone out of hypothermia. It's an excellent method of treating somebody that's in hypothermia. But if you're going to do that, you need a lot of calories in there. Remember all that honey we put in the tea?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be an excellent way to treat hypothermia. A lot of warm water and a lot of honey. So now that we've had our calories and our warm tea, we probably should get hiking. I've got my survival kit I want to go through. I noticed that you brought some good things in yours. What things should we have in a survival kit, Mark?
You should have fire, shelter, and signal.
Just that simple. Fire, shelter, and signal.
Yeah, plus some water.
All right, good. Well, as far as shelter, that really seemed to be key last night. The ability to keep ourselves warm. If we look at what's in a kit, really it centers around shelter. Inside, where I've got a lot of room, I had this heat reflective tarp that we built as a shelter for us. And I think key to this whole thing was our Gore-Tex bivy bag that doesn't take up a lot of room and provided a lot of warmth and kept us dry through the night. I've got an extra scarf. I've got an extra pair of socks. And I've actually got an extra hat to keep me warm through the night. So I've got that and another emergency blanket. Now I need to go into fire. Some of the keys that we used last night to build fire was this striker, which works even if everything else is wet, and these wax-filled paper cups that were very easy to get lit. Remember, we just frayed the edge, put a cotton ball inside of it, and then lit the cotton ball with the striker. So we've got fire pretty well covered. We have an extra lighter. I have an extra couple of cases of waterproof matches. We've got fire pretty well covered, don't we? Mm-hmm. Well, there's next thing that we need to do is signal. And you can use this orange silk scarf as signal. You could tie that in a tree today and we'd be seen very easily. I've also got a signal mirror. I know it's a little cloudy right now, but there are times when we could use that signal mirror to get quite a bright signal. I've got extra things in here. I've got some cord to be able to build shelter. I've got an extra source of signal, this blue light, which is really an effective method of signal. And I've got a signal whistle. Lots of the water that you recommended. And I have a steel cup that we were drinking the tea out of. And I really think that's a good idea to bring, especially on a winter camp out. There's other items in here that are just extra. I do always carry a compass. I wanted to make sure that you knew how to find directions last night, but I think a good military compass is essential. Can you see anything else in there that you're interested in, Mark?
No, I think you explained it all very well.
Okay. Got a little Swiss card, got a P38, a few little extra things that I might need. That about covers it. I wanted to take a minute to go over a few things that helped us survive last night and even helped us be comfortable. First of all, our pine bough bed. This is invaluable. If you're in a setting where there are any kind of pine boughs, this is what's going to save you. Now, to build a pine bough bed, you need to break off some bigger pine boughs. When they come off a tree, they're cupped in this shape to draw moisture into the root of the tree. We want to use them cupped downward so that they retain loft for us. And we take the bigger stems and poke those into the ground and start to build a nice bed. Poke those in. We're going to build a bed wide enough for our sleeping bag. Once we have the bigger pine boughs down, we'll move to the medium-sized pine boughs. I'd like to build a bed that's at least 6 inches high, or at least 3 or 4 layers of pine boughs. So I put these medium-sized boughs on top. Again, we're poking the stems down in so that we have that loft. And then we reach for some of the smaller pine boughs, this size, and we put those on top of the limbs that we already have down. And you can see with this type of a system, we have a really nice bed with a lot of loft that will provide a lot of dead air space. It will keep the cold moisture from moving up to our body. Next, and this was key to a good night, is our bivy bag. This bivy bag is waterproof, breathable Gore-Tex. Through the night, I actually pulled that thing over my head and breathed through it so that I could retain all that heat for my body and for my next breath. I've also got some moisture around my head area that humidifies the air as it comes in. The good thing about Gore-Tex is it's never going to allow you to build up too much moisture so that you get cold. Now on top of that, we put our heat reflective blanket. This surface reflects 90% of your body heat, and we wanted to keep all the heat that we could. Now we've got to be concerned about moisture management. If we lay that on our bodies, we'll trap the moisture. We tied off to these logs, to some higher logs. We had a sloping roof that allowed the moisture to move up and away from our body. So just like our clothing, we need to be concerned about dead air space, reflecting the heat, and then allowing the moisture to move away from our body. And I think we accomplished that with the shelter that we built. And then we have another heat reflective blanket. We could put that below us in the pine boughs or above us. The best thing about this gold color is it is an excellent source of signal. This morning I was able to get a fire going just from the charcoals that were left over from last night. You can see I piled on some boughs to generate a little bit of smoke so that a rescue team will know we're in the area. If we were injured or couldn't move, we'd need to let somebody know our location. Last night we could have used a number of different tools that we have for signal. We could have used this bright LED headlamp to get somebody's attention. We had other lights that we could have used to get their attention. This is an LED light as well, and it's quite bright. Or the military strobe that we have can send off a light that can be seen at least 5 miles. During daylight hours, these don't seem that effective, but at night, it's very easy to see these. In the event that we heard a team coming and we needed to get them right to our location, we can always use an audio signal. This is a military P-type whistle. That can be quite effective. There's other types of signal whistles that I feel are even better. This is the jet scream whistle, which can be heard at even longer distances. And then we have the British type marine whistle, which is very effective because of the duo tones. Now, the purpose of these would be to get the attention of a rescue team. However, right now, I'm trying to get Mark out of bed. He's been there entirely too long. He won't wake up, and he's doing what teenagers do best, and that's sleep in the morning. Mark, do you hear me?
No.
All right. I know he hears me, although he's ignoring me. Now, fortunately, we didn't have any visitors last night. You're always worried that a grizzly bear is going to come into camp. Years ago, this time of year, we wouldn't worry. They're in hibernation. I work with people at Yellowstone National Park and do a lot of training. The guys tell me that with all the wolf kills in the wintertime, the grizzly bears are now coming out of hibernation because there's plenty of food available. But it does make us nervous camping this time of year. So we were ready last night, and I want to do this little demo to show that even though this bear spray was frozen last night in our camp, it might still work. So here we have a can of bear spray, and it's got a safety clip that needs to be removed before it can be used. This safety clip is very simple. You just slide it off. There's a little trigger here that when pressed down emits the spray. And of course you don't want that going off in your backpack. So you can slide that trigger in there to keep it from going off. At the time you need to use it, it's a pretty quick maneuver. Just grab the can, pull off the trigger, and you're ready to fire. Well, Mark, what do you think?
I like the spot. It's really wide open. When we mark that X, it's going to be seeable from a helicopter or from the ground.
Yeah, they can see it from the air in an airplane or from the ground. Yeah, we've got a wide open spot here. No trees are blocking it. So we're going to mark a big X here. Why don't you go ahead and I'll follow you. That'll be good enough right there.
Yeah, that's good.
Why don't you go off that way. That'll be good enough right there.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, Mark, the longer you leave that powder, the more it turns red. It looks like we have a pretty good start here. We'll finish off that leg and then the other one. Finish off the rest as we go and they'll be able to see our signal.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish it up and then we're out of here.
Yeah.
Excited to get back home?
Heck yes.
Okay. This is a beautiful day, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Extremely beautiful.
We're catching that sunshine I wish I'd have had all night long. Oh, look, there's Blackmore right there.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
we've been walking about 3 miles now.
is that all?
I think it's been about 3, maybe 3.5. You tired?
Yeah.
Feels like we've been at it all day, huh?
Oh, yeah. We have.
Well, let's just keep going. We'll get there eventually.
I think I see the trail.
Where?
Right down there.
There it is.
Jeez.
That means we're about a mile from the truck. Good job, buddy. We're there. Let's go. What do you want to do when we get home?
Take a big nap and drink a gallon of water.
A nap and a gallon of water.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be good.
Heavy like that now.
Pretty good trip.
Yeah.
I think we both learned a lot.
Trying to live in love with a heart that can't be broken is like trying to see the light with eyes that can't be opened. Yeah, we both carry baggage we picked up on our way. So if you love me, do it gently, and I will do the same. We may shine